you were looking for.
You didn't tell me your name.
Don Blake.
Do you know my name?
Well, Alan mentioned it a few times, but I'm not quite sure. Elizabeth?
No, it's Catherine.
I know what you're thinking. I can almost hear that mind of yours churning. You're wondering why I'm so eager to help. Or maybe you're wondering why I'm so willing to believe the worst of Jane. Well, I never met Jane, but I never liked her either. Do you know her first husband killed himself?
Jane had nothing to do with it. The man had money once, and he just couldn't stand being broke.
Uh-huh. Well, anyway, getting back to Alan. You obviously think there's something wrong. And I wouldn't like to feel I walked out on him. So if there's anything I can do or anything that ought to be done, I'd appreciate you telling me about it.
All right, Mr. Blake.
Better? Feel like talking now?
It's cold in here.
I'll turn on the oven. Maybe I shouldn't bother to light it. Huh, Tiger? So hubby pulled a cross-up, is that it? The dough's checked somewhere, I gather.
Yes.
Where?
Is it possible to get the bag without the ticket? I know exactly what it looks like.
Sure. All you gotta do is describe the contents. Then the cops come and take you away.
The ticket's someplace in the apartment. I know it. I've got to get back. And I've got to have that gun.
Sure, I'll give you your gun. All you gotta do is ask and Danny gives. Remember the ride we took last night, Tiger? The money was buried up in the hills. You were taking me up there to give me my half, remember? You were taking me up there to kill me, Tiger. You were gonna kill me. And now I give you back the gun. Sure. I'll give it to you. But first I'm gonna get to know you better. I think probably someday you will kill me. And I wouldn't want that to happen unless we were good friends. Go ahead, scream. Get the cops in here. That's all we need.
Where have you been, Jane? Is there any news?
No. Why aren't you at work?
Work? With Alan just swallowed up someplace? Where have you been?
Walking, thinking, trying to figure this thing out.
Jane, I thought of something this morning. If Alan, well, just went away, don't you...
What do you mean if he just went away? What else could have happened?
I don't know. Nothing seems to make any sense.
Does it ever?
I thought of a way we might be able to tell. Alan's gun. He loved that gun. It was the only thing he saved from his army days. If he'd known he was going away, I think he'd have taken it with him, don't you?
We can easily find out. What's the matter with you?
Nothing. I think I know who it is, Jane. It's a friend of Alan's. I ran into him in the hall. He said he'd be back.
Are you Mrs. Palmer? Lieutenant Breach, Homicide Division. May I come in? You don't seem to have expected me.
Should I have?
Well, didn't you report it? Oh, my apologies, Mrs. Palmer. I see what's wrong now. The missing persons detail is part of the Homicide Division. I've been assigned to the case you reported.
Oh, I'm afraid you frightened me for a minute, Lieutenant. I was afraid something had happened.
I'm sorry.
Oh, Lieutenant Breach, my sister-in-law, Miss Palmer. Won't you sit down?
I've been trying to get you by phone, Mrs. Palmer. I have some information for you you might prefer to discuss privately.
Miss Palmer's my husband's sister. Go ahead.
Is there anything you would like to add? Something you didn't put into your report?
No, not a thing.
Mrs. Palmer, there's nothing illegal about being missing. We only work on a missing person's case if it's a juvenile or if there's some evidence of foul play or a suicide or an accident. When we get evidence that it is something else, and it usually is, we don't touch it.
I see.
So you see, Mrs. Palmer, it isn't exactly playing ball with us to hold anything back.
Hold what back, Lieutenant?
The other woman, Mrs. Palmer.
What do you know about her?
Well, it's the only thing we've uncovered so far. A Bel Air resident, he's vice president of a furniture plant out in Vernon, was pulling out of his driveway last night when this car, your car, driven by a woman, almost crashed into him. A man dressed like you described your husband, same size, everything, gets out of the car. Apparently, they'd had a quarrel. Well, that's about all our informant saw. All he did was spot the license number. There might have been foul play. I doubt it. I suspect they patched it up. Do you know anything about this woman, Mrs. Palmer?
Not very much, I'm afraid. I've only seen her once or twice. She's a little taller than I am. Hair a little darker. Brown eyes, I think. But I don't know her name or where she lives.
Jane, you never told me. Why?
Because I didn't think it meant... Oh? Yes. It's for you.
Oh, I told the Bureau I'd be here. Thank you. Hello? Yes? Uh-huh. Uh-huh. Okay, thanks. Goodbye. I'm afraid that wraps it up. If you really want some action on your husband, Mrs. Palmer, I'd suggest you bring in some private help. Your car was located 12 miles south of San Diego, just this side of the Mexican border. Your husband wasn't in some kind of trouble, was he, Mrs. Palmer?
No, or not that I know of. Are you sure it was our car?
Yes. I'll see that it's sent back. Good luck.
And thank you, Lieutenant.
Goodbye.
I know Alan wasn't seeing another woman, and so do you.
Where Alan's concerned, my dear, you're blind. It's time you knew it.
Your description of this other woman, Jane, it sounded very much like you.
What do you mean by that? What are you trying to imply?
I'm not quite sure.
Well, hello again. We always seem to be colliding in hallways, don't we?
Yes, we seem to. Jane, this is the man I mentioned to you. He flew with Alan. Mr. Blake, my sister-in-law.
How do you do, Mrs. Palmer?
How do you do?
I'm sorry to hear about Al, but I'm sure he'll turn up soon.
Thank you.
Will you excuse me, Jane, Mr. Blake?
Well, she seems to be a bit upset. Has there been some news about Alan?
No, but they were very close, you know.
Oh, I know.
Did you want to see Alan about anything special?
Oh, no. We were just very good friends.
I see. Would you like to come in?
All right.